Today I'm going to show you how to crochet these cute and colourful Christmas baubles. They're a super fun and quick project to make and they look so nice on a Christmas tree. First, I'll show you how to make this 6cm/2.3 inch bauble size. This one has a decorative topper and a little hoop for hanging. Then I'll show you the pattern for a larger 8cm or 3.1 inch size bauble. This style has a little hole at the top that we'll put a hanger on. You'll need some colourful yarn. I'm using 8-ply or DK wool. And you'll need a darning needle, scissors and a 3mm crochet hook. Finally, you need some baubles that can go underneath your beautiful crochet work. I'm using these clear plastic baubles, but you could also use colourful ones as well. We're going to start with a magic ring. Wrap the yarn around the 2 fingers on your left hand twice so it makes a cross on the top. Put your hook under the right strand and then pick up the left. Pull this through and then take this off your fingers. We're going to work into this magic ring from right to left. So pick up your working yarn and keep a hold on your tail yarn here. Make 1 chain. Then make another chain and 1 more. This acts as our first double crochet. Then, to do the next double crochet, yarn over your hook, insert it into the magic ring, pull through a loop to the front, yarn over, pull through 2 loops on the hook, then yarn over and pull through the last 2 loops on the hook. Then, do another double crochet the exact same way. Yarn over, insert your hook, pull through a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, then yarn over and pull through the last 2 loops on the hook. This is our first cluster, otherwise known as a granny cluster stitch. Then do 1 chain. Then we'll do another granny cluster. We'll do 3 double crochets, then do 1 chain. Work 2 more of these granny clusters with a chain in between them into the magic ring. So here we have our first 3 double crochets and a chain 1, our second set and a chain 1, our third set a chain 1, and then our final set of 3 double crochets and a chain 1. Now we're going to join this up. Find the first 3 chains that you made at the start of the round and insert your hook into the third one up. Go through both of the strands at the top of the stitch. It looks like a little V. Then yarn over and pull through this stitch and then the loop on the hook. Flip your work over and find the tail from your magic ring. Pull this nice and tight to close up that magic ring. Then take your scissors, trim the yarn and pull this through the loop on the hook. Tighten this off to make a knot. Now we're going to weave in our ends as we go so we don't have to do them at the end. What I like to do is flip my work over, then weave this piece of yarn here down through the back loops of these stitches. You just need to go through a few so it ends up down near the yarn from the magic ring at the start. Once I've got the 2 strands down here, I like to tie them off into a double knot. Make sure you don't pull on these too tightly as it might disrupt the stitches from up here. Then I take my crochet hook and feed it under some of the stitches in the center and then pull the yarns through. Then I'll trim it off at the end. Get the colour for your next round and we're going to make a slip knot. Wrap it around your fingers once, insert the hook underneath and pull the left strand through. Keep this on the hook and then pull the other strands tight to make a knot. Put this up just below the hook so you've got a little slip knot. We're going to make 2 clusters into each of the 4 spaces of the previous round. We're going to start this next round with a standing double crochet. Keep your working yarn under tension with your left hand and keep the tail tensioned with the spare fingers of your right. Yarn over the hook, insert it into one of the spaces of your previous round just below a chain, pull through a loop. then yarn over and pull through 2 loops on the hook, then yarn over and pull through the last 2 loops on the hook. That's your standing double crochet. Then we're going to make 2 more double crochets into this space. That's our first granny cluster for this round. Then chain 1, and we're going to make another cluster of 3 double crochets into the same space. Then we're going to chain 1 and do another 2 clusters into this next corner. So that's 3 double crochets, 1 chain, and then 3 more double crochets. Then we'll chain 1 and repeat this exact same process for the next 2 corner spaces in our first round. You'll have a total of 8 clusters for this round. Then we'll join it with a slip stitch to the first stitch just to the left of this knot we've created at the start of the round. Next, trim off your yarn and pull this through the loop on the hook and tighten it off to make your knot. We're going to weave in these ends as well as we go. Take both strands, and then I like to just insert my hook into the top of the next stitches along and pull my yarn through from the back to the front. In the next stitch, I'll put my hook in through the back and pull the yarn from the front. I'll continue this for the next few stitches. Because this isn't a garment or something that's going to be used, you don't have to worry too much about weaving your ends in that much, so a few is fine. I'll trim all these yarn ends off at the end. At this point we've done the base of the bauble. We've got our first round of 4 clusters and then the second round of 8 clusters. In the next round we're going to do a granny cluster in each space of the previous round. So that'll be another total of 8 in this round. Start your next round off in a different section from where you ended your last round. Then make a standing double crochet in your new yarn colour. Then do 2 more double crochets to complete the cluster. Then in the next space of this corner here where there's the 2 clusters, right under this chain, we're going to do another cluster. Do 3 double crochets and then finish that up with a chain 1. In the next space along, we're going to do another cluster of 3 double crochets. Then chain 1, and then we'll do another one in this corner cluster here. You want to make sure you end this round with 8 clusters. At the end of this round, you'll see how it's starting to curve up and make more of a ball shape. Finish off this round in just the same way as we did before by making a slip stitch into that first stitch to the left of the knot. Trim off your yarn, pull this through and tighten it off, then weave in those ends. Now we're going to do round 4, 5 and 6 in exactly the same way as we just did for the third round. Here I've completed round 4 in the pink, and I'm just trying it onto the bowl to see how the fit is going. This is round 5 completed in the blue and round 6 in the teal. Round 7 will be slightly different so we can gather it around this decorative top. Start by making a standing double crochet into one of the spaces. Then make 2 more double crochets to complete that cluster. Then instead of doing a chain, we're going to go straight on to doing another cluster in the next space. So do 3 double crochets. We'll keep making clusters in each of the spaces without doing any chains in between the clusters for this round. At the end of this round, join with a slip stitch just like we did before. When it comes time to trimming your yarn off, make sure you leave enough length because we're going to be using this to sew around the top and gather this in. Pull this through the loop on the hook and then tighten it off. We're going to use this yarn to stitch around the top. Insert your hook into the stitch to the right of the knot from front to back, then pull the yarn through from back to front. Then insert your hook into the next stitch, take your yarn to the back and pull this through to the front again. Keep repeating this process for all the stitches around till you get back to the start. You might find it easier to use a darning needle for this. When you get back to the start, we'll be ready to gather it. But first, you need to flip your work inside out and trim all the yarn ends that we've made. Because we've already weaved these in, you can just snip them off. Then put your bauble into your little pouch and then we'll tighten up the top. Pull on the yarn end that you used to stitch around the top edge and make this nice and tight around the top. If your bauble doesn't have one of these decorative toppers, you might need to do another round. Keep watching the video for the 8cm bauble coming up next, where I'll show you how to do this. Once this is tight and neat around the top, take the two yarn ends and tie these in a double knot. Then, using your darning needle or your crochet hook, weave these ends in underneath some of the stitches and then trim them off. And here's our finished little Christmas bauble. Doesn't it look so cute and sweet? Now I'm going to show you a pattern for the larger bauble. We'll use the exact same techniques we used before, but there's a few slight differences in the pattern. This one starts off with a magic ring as well, but instead of making 4 granny clusters into the magic ring, we're actually going to make 5 granny clusters. And then chain 1 in between the clusters and make 3 more double crochets into the ring for the next cluster. Repeat this all the way around until you have 5 clusters in the ring. You'll join this the exact same way as I showed you for the first bauble and weave in your ends. In the next round, you'll do 2 granny clusters in each chain space for a total of 10 granny clusters. In the third round, you'll keep doing a granny cluster in every chain space for a total of 10 granny clusters. You'll repeat this exact pattern for the next 4 rounds. Then we'll do the top. For the 8th round, you'll make a standing double crochet, and then 2 more double crochets to make your first cluster. Then, instead of doing the chain between clusters, we're going to just move straight on to the next cluster in the next space. You'll do a cluster in every chain space for this entire round, making sure you don't do any chains in between the clusters. At the end of this round, trim off all your yarn ends from the inside and then pop your bauble into your pouch. It's fitting really well at this point and we've got 1 round to go. But if your bauble has one of these decorative toppers that makes the top a little bit bigger, you might want to stop at this point and gather the stitches you've already done in the exact same way I showed you for the first bauble. Otherwise, let's do 1 more round and make up this space. The final round will have to be stitched while it's on the bauble, which can be a little bit fiddly. Just make sure that when you do your first standing double crochet that you have your tension really nicely held in your hands. After your standing double crochet, do 2 more double crochets into that same chain space. Skip over the next chain space between these 2 clusters here and move on to this one. Make a cluster of 3 double crochets here. Try and keep this under tension because it'll keep your stitches really nice and it'll make sure you don't get any gaps between your clusters. Then skip over the next chain space and move into the next one along. You might find it easier if you sort of squish up your fabric around the ball to make it a bit easier to stitch into. Continue this pattern all the way around and you'll end up with 5 granny stitch clusters. At the end of the round, join it with a slip stitch to the first stitch you made, just to the left of that knot. When you go to trim off your yarn, leave about 20 centimeters or 8 inches because we're going to make a little tie with this. Pull this through the loop on the hook and tighten it off to make a knot. Like I showed you in the bauble before, I'm going to use this long length of yarn to stitch through the top stitches. Putting my hook through from the front to the back, I'll pull my yarn through from the back to the front. Then I'll flip the yarn over to the back again, insert my hook into the next stitch along and pull this through. Continue doing this all the way around to the start. When you're at the start, pull this tight around your bauble to make it nice and neat. Then take your 2 yarn ends and tie these off into a double knot. If your bauble has a hole at the top, it's nice to make a hanger here with the yarn you've been using. Pull the long length of yarn through this hole with your crochet hook. Then you'll notice if you twist your yarn one way, it'll start to unravel, but if you twist it the other way, it gets tighter and tighter. Take a length of yarn and then twist this in your fingertips so it tightens up. Keep a good hold on it or it'll start to unravel again. Keep tightening your yarn up until you notice it start to fold back over on itself. Then hold your finger at about the halfway point and then let the yarn fall back and you'll notice that it doubles up into a coil. Neaten this out and straighten it so it's one long length of coil. Then put your yarn end on a darning needle and feed this back through the hole. Then find the end of your coil and put your needle through the loop at the very tip. Pull this through and tighten it up. Then tie your 2 yarn ends together in a double knot. Weave this yarn end in under some of the stitches in the previous round and then trim off the ends. Do this for the other yarn end as well. And there's our cute and slightly bigger granny stitch bauble. Here they are side by side so you can see the difference. They look so cheerful and fun and I love having them on my Christmas tree this year. Are you planning on making some to put up on your tree? If so, leave me a comment below and let me know how it ends up looking. Happy crafting everyone, and I'll see you in the next video.